So there we are. It's 5 o'clock. At least for me, it is 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're located. I'm located in Sweden, so 5 o'clock. Pretty dark already outside. Tiny bit of snow. I'm taking over for Vesa today. Vesa is actually enjoying a birthday party, and he just told me that he was actually jumping on the trampoline as we speak. So now don't run off and try to find him, although probably hilarious to watch. But I will talk you through today's ecosystem community call. And we have 2 interesting demos to go, and another thing that Vesa told me to do is to release my inner Vesa. So I will not take that too literal this time, but let's hope that I don't crash after a few minutes. That's one thing. And second of all, let's see if I can do it as fast or as slow as he does in the slides. So let's get started. And I saw in the chat already that, by the way, I'm Erwin van Hunen. I am a PNP core team member, and I work for Rancor. I saw in the chat already here that David Warner, he already noticed that there is a new logo here. And I'm just curious what you guys think of the new SharePoint logo. If you just write it down in the chat, start discussing there. And as you see, we gave it a bit of a PNP flavor, to say the least. Little PNP logo we made out of it. So I'm still a bit in the middle what I think about it, because I grew up with the blue logo, if you want to call it. Grew up, yeah. But yeah, throughout the years I got so used to the blue logo, and now suddenly different color, and it takes a bit more space, and I don't know. Well, we'll see. Today I will share a bit of the latest news, summaries, some numbers and figures, and then we have 2 demos. Alex will demo some things with the API for the graph, and Bert will go into modernization tooling and something we actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bert, something we released in PowerShell among others now too. And then if we have time, yeah, great. And if we have time left, then well, just shoot away your questions, and we'll try to answer them. So a bit of the update. This is the slide that you see every month if you join us every month, which I hope you do. So we have these bi-weekly meetings, one focusing purely on the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript, TypeScript related, where among others, Patrick Rogers is leading those, and the next one will be on Thursday the 20th. Then we also have the general dev meetings, which are also bi-weekly, so they alternate. 1 week general dev, next week SharePoint Framework, then general dev again. And they're always on a Thursday. So the 13th of December, we have general development. There we go into PowerShell, CSOM, Flow, Power Apps, Graph, those kind of details. And there will be demos always every week where we talk about those topics, or where people will show, at times, amazing things they actually built based on those technologies. And then we have the monthly community calls. That's the one you're in today. And the next one will be on January the 8th, where we will talk a similar demo, a similar talk as today, but obviously new topics there. So please join those. The AKMS links are in there. They link to an invite, and you just put them in your calendar. And I would love you to basically join all of them. We actually had a question out to the community. Are we doing too many meetings? Is it too much information we're sharing? Is it too difficult? And the overall sentiment was actually no. People seem to be okay with the amount of meetings and information we're sharing. So I can understand that sometimes it's like, okay, another meeting and another meeting and another meeting. But of course, we record them so you can watch them at your own leisure and at your own time. If you have an interesting long commute, well, watch these videos and be up to date in what's happening in the SharePoint development world. A couple of metrics, and basically these numbers, they go every month, they go up. That's basically the trend in this slide. More minutes in YouTube, more views in YouTube, more views in GitHub, more unique visitors, more HTTP requests. That number always blows me away. 10.3 billion per month. It's an insane amount of requests, and over 18,000 unique SharePoint tenants that make use of PNP code, which is crazy. You see also docs.microsoft.com. The SharePoint Dev is almost a million views already. It's pretty crazy. Now, this slide, and I remember if you've been here before, Vesa always tells here, like, we cannot share the actual numbers here, but this is show you the trend. You're not alone. This technology is the best adopted and accepted technology currently in Office 365, the new framework that, compared to all the other frameworks that were introduced, like, if I dare to mention the word sandboxing, for instance, the sandboxing solutions, all those new things and the app model, etc. When compared to that, this one is the best accepted, best adopted, and goes the fastest. It's actually amazing numbers, although you don't see any numbers here, but they are pretty amazing actually. So really well accepted, and people are really jumping on this, which is great to see. A couple of standard links here. We have the development. What I always would like to point out here is if you find issues in the documentation, the easiest way to get that fixed is to actually fix it yourself. Go to the documentation here and you'll find at the top right of a page, if you find, and that can be about development, it can be about administration, it can be about PowerShell or whatever. If you find an issue, click on the edit button, on the edit link at the top right. You will be redirected to GitHub, and there you can make a modification. You can make a pull request and make your changes in that pull request and then submit it back in. And then the team will look at your changes, and if they are correct and if they make sense, they will merge them in. So please have a look at the documentation. And if you find issues, and I can guarantee you there are issues, go to the edit link and make those changes yourself. You can obviously also leave a comment on the document, but then it's if you know what's wrong, please fix it. It's all open source. It's all there on GitHub for you to modify. If you have issues with, for instance, SPFX or the SharePoint Framework or anything else related to SharePoint, use the SPDev docs issues list. This is the best way to communicate with SharePoint engineering. They monitor this, they will classify items here, and they will take action upon them. So this is the way to go, and for you to give feedback directly to the team that builds SharePoint. So if you have an issue with anything related to SharePoint, it was originally focused on the SharePoint framework. Now it's actually, the scope is a bit bigger. So everything that is sort of like, this is weird, and why, and this should work, but it doesn't, go and create an issue here. SPDev-issues is the short link, and the repo is /SharePoint/SPDev-docs. So we released the latest NuGet packages. They came out already last Friday. Yesterday we released PNP PowerShell, which is based on that same library. Lots of fixes, especially when it comes to modernization. There are some very interesting things out there now. So all the details about what is in there, normally we would talk that through, you will get some slides in there. We moved that now to a blog. So you see akms/spdev.blog, go there, and there you'll find all the information about what has changed in the December 2018 release of the PNP packages and PowerShell, etc., and Office 365 CLI and modernization and the partner pack and whatever has been updated. So please go to this blog and follow that one. I would like to point out the SharePoint Dev Weekly. I was lucky enough to actually show up in that one for weeks in a row, but not in person. You might have noticed that there was always somewhere a picture of me on the back of the screen behind Vesa and whatever. Finally, I actually made it into the weekly itself. Absolutely worth checking out. It's like half an hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour sometimes. It depends a bit on how much they talk. Weekly show vlog, whatever you want to call it, together with Vesta and Waldeck, and then every week a guest, and talking about what has happened last week. And this is released on Monday. So absolutely worth checking out. And you see, this is the picture from the last one that they recorded yesterday with Judy Turner. So absolutely worth checking out. Bert will demo this later during this call. I will not go too deep into this. I'll leave it up to Bert, because that is the magic behind this he has written, and I think it's actually pretty amazing. And with the release that we did yesterday, it will actually be even easier to modernize your classic pages into modern pages. And so we'll demo that later by Bert. Thank you for your assistance. All these names, and every week, every month, this list gets longer and longer to the level that there will probably only be that you see little lines on the slide. For now, it still sort of fits. But thank you all for helping us out. All these names, all these people have been creating pull requests, or have been committing, or gave updates, or found a bug, or etc. etc. So thank you all for helping us out. This is a community effort. We together make PNP happen, and we together make that PNP is so successful. So thank you very much for this. And these are the companies that are actually allowed us to use their logo. So people work for these companies. They can spend time during their daytime, during their paid time, effectively, to work on PNP and help us with PNP. So thank you. If you have that opportunity, which I think is great, if your company allows you to do that, send us your logo, contact us, and we'll get your logo on this slide, with the risk that this slide will also be too small, and that we have to introduce multiple slides in the future, or make the logos so small that you can't recognize them anymore. It's not only people from the community, it's also people, well, they're still part of the community, obviously, but there's also people working at Microsoft that work with PNP, and thank you for those people in Microsoft too. The most important name, or not the most important name, but the most known name, I think, on this list that was also demoed later today, that is Bert Jansen, who is directly, very heavily involved with PNP, and also Patrick Rogers here, that is also on the call today, working for Microsoft, very strongly involved with PNP. So I actually did it in 13 minutes. Whereas that usually takes half an hour. I hope I didn't miss something. So we have a lot of time, which is good. So I'd like to start with Alex. Alex, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You are? Great. Okay, so then I'll stop sharing soon, and you can take over the screen, and the stage is yours.
All right, thank you. So hello everyone. Let me share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Nothing yet. Nothing happening here.
And I've got it on my side.
And yes, so do I.
All right. Awesome. So I have even a small presentation here. So my demo is about using Microsoft Graph Teams API in SharePoint Framework solutions. So basically, the example that I'll be showing is located in our samples in web parts repo in GitHub. So you can go there. The name for the example is React Team Creator. So it contains all the code that I'll be showing. Basically, it's a small web part that creates team, creates channel inside the team, and adds tab to that created channel. So basically what you can do in that web part, you can add a name like PNP call, description, provide owners. By the way, for the owners and members, I'm using reusable React controls from PNP as well. Channel name, demo channel, add new tab, tab name, my tab, and now it's getting all the applications that are available in the catalog for the teams. So let's select Jira, because I know that Jira is a tab application actually. So it creates a team, but it creates group first, because we need a group to create a team. Then for this group, it creates a team, then creating a channel, installing the app to the new team, and adding the tab. And when everything is over, you can go to the Teams application in your web browser. It will open. Here we have this PNP call, new team, new channel. In channel we have my tab, and we have Jira Cloud application. The only thing that we need to do is to actually configure this application, configure this tab. So basically what we're using, first of all, from permission side of things, we need to request two types of permissions, appcatalog.readwrite.all and group.readwrite.all. The first one is needed to get the access to applications, Teams applications that are available in App Catalog. And the second one is needed to do all the other stuff, like create the group, create team, channel, and add the tab. From endpoints, there are several endpoints that are used in this example, in this sample. First, we are creating the group. It's a post to groups endpoint. Then we are creating a team. It's a put, not post, for the group /id/team. Then creating a channel in the team. Same inside the team's endpoint, inside channels, we are doing post. Then we are installing the app to the team. Again, it's in Teams endpoint. Then adding tab to the channel, and additional request is to get Teams applications from App Catalog. So it's not inside the Teams endpoints and groups endpoint, it's inside /app catalogs. So resources, I was using not all the APIs that are available, of course, for Teams in MS Graph. So this URL is entry point for all the resources around teamwork in Microsoft Graph. So basically, I can open it. So it has multiple items here, like how to create team, how to create group, not only create, but get team, update, archive, etc., etc. Same for channels, for apps, for calendars. So basically, everything you can do inside your Teams. Okay, and a few caveats that I found. So these caveats are more related to like generic solutions, and all of them are related to App Catalog /Teams apps endpoint. First one, we don't have type information for the applications returned, so we can't tell that hey, this app is like a bot, let's say, this one a tab one. So in the drop down that we had here, sorry, let me refresh. In this drop down, select an app, I can't actually filter by type of the application. That's why all the apps from App Catalog are listed here. It would be great if we can just say like, hey, we need only tabs applications here, and filter by that type of the application. So this is the first caveat to my mind. And the second one, no app configuration information is provided as well. So we don't know what exact configurations should be provided to this or that app. And that's why we can't add additional step to the web part to actually configure the tab. That's why when you go to the Microsoft Teams application for the new team created, for the new tab created, you still need to configure it manually from the Teams UI. And let's look in the code a bit. So it's basically a part. I have a simple one component here, some rendering, which is not very interesting, event handlers, and the most important things here. The first method is get available apps. It actually requests all the applications from the app catalog. So everything is pretty simple because we're using Graph Client provided by out of the box by SharePoint Framework. So basically we are creating Graph Client, requesting Graph Client, and the only request here is to these app catalogs Teams apps. Endpoints. After that, I'm just filtering them by sorting them by display name, and that's it. We have all the apps from app catalog. The second main flow method is process creation request, and we are doing everything like one by one. So first we are creating a group, then we are creating a team, because team can be created only when the group is created. Next one is create channel inside the created team. Install the app to the team, and add tab to the channel. The only interesting thing that I want to mention here, let's go to this create teams with atoms method. The thing is that in the official documentation for group creation in MS Graph, it is said that group creation can take maybe 15, 20, 25 seconds. So we need to wait that before creating the team. That's why in the create team method, I'm waiting for 10 seconds to actually send the request. If it fails, I have 2 attempts to make it again. So basically, I'm trying to create the team. If it returns me exception that group is not there, then I'll try it again in 10 seconds, and then again in 10 seconds if it's still the problem. So basically, that's it. Nothing more. So it's just using the endpoints provided by MS Graph, and just combining them in a single flow to do all the steps one by one. So pretty easy, extendable. So yeah, use that for any ALM applications for team to automate your process using SharePoint Framework. So that's probably it.
Okay, there's a question here from Raymond. Maybe you want to answer that. The question is, can you only do one channel at tab, or can you set up multiple?
You can do a lot of channels in a team, and you can do a lot of tabs in a channel. So basically, tabs are in channel.
Right. So maybe a great example of how to use this API, I think. For those that focus on the provisioning engine, or people that use the provisioning engine, we are actually thinking of, or not only thinking, we already decided to do that. So we will introduce the ability to configure teams and channels, etc., through the tenant template construct that we have. So it will come also part of the provisioning engine. But if you need a bit more interactive approach, then this is the way forward, I would say. So really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Bert, moving on.
Yes, I'm trying to share my screen. Let's see if that works.
I'm almost wondering, are we going too fast?
Yes.
Yes, I think so too. This is unheard of. It's 24 past, and
Can someone
we already did the demo.
I don't think screen sharing is working. Let's try again.
Okay.
Maybe I should stop doing the recording as well. Let's see. Loading.
Yeah, it's loading.
An error occurred during the screen presentation.
Oh. I see a screen, but that's not yours. That was a Mac. Now
yeah,
it is
okay. I'm going to stop the recording. Patrick, you're recording, right?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording from my side. See if that makes a difference. And try once more. Otherwise, I have to quickly restart the Skype.
Which shouldn't take long.
No.
Not on the home supercomputer Bert is running.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's not start that discussion. No, it's not coming. Give me a few seconds. I'll be right back. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Sure. I think Patrick and I will keep on talking.
Sure.
Yeah. So, any news already what you will talk about on the December the 20th?
Who, me?
Yeah. In the JavaScript SIG?
Probably, some SharePoint Framework updates and updates around the other PnP client-side related libraries. I don't have in front of me. I could get open. We've got demos already scheduled, which I'll admit I don't commit to memory. Let's see if I can find that. So yeah, it should be a good call as always. I know we'll be getting into the holiday season. Only one demo scheduled, so we have an opening on the 20th of December if somebody would want to jump in there. We got Luis Manez on React Teams tab suggested members, which should be a cool thing. That was a web part submitted to the SPDev FX web parts repo there, so that should be really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and did just notice we do have an open slot on the 20th, so if anybody wants to jump in there, I'd certainly love to have you demo.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did Bert already reconnect, or is he now still, I see his name.
I'm back. I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Trying
Okay,
to share now, and hopefully it works now. Let's see.
If it doesn't, I'll punish everybody by telling the whale joke. Oh, it worked. Good.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. So sorry for the little hiccup. I want to talk a bit about modernization because we shipped some really cool new things and we did some changes and also in the place where we store everything. So let's first talk about our new repository. So we now have, if I zoom correctly, come on. I need to follow a course zooming by Vesa, but anyhow, we have a new repository called sp-dev-modernization, which contains all the modernization bits. That includes the modernization framework, the one doing, for example, the page transformation. It includes scripts, so there are scripts that help you modernize, like Group Connect, transform pages, modernize full site collections. But it also contains our solutions. And one of the new solutions that I'm going to talk about today is our page transformation UI. So being able to modernize pages from inside the SharePoint user interface. This is fairly new, and it was announced at ESPC. And it's available for you to use. And what I want to do today is actually show you how to deploy it. And in parallel, once the deployment is running, I will talk a bit about modernizing using PowerShell. So with that, before I jump into the demos, all the content that I'm showing, all the scripts that I'm showing, everything is available here. Like, for example, deployment. If you go to the docs, you have the deployment guide over here. So which just describes how to deploy it, but we're going to do that in practice. And all the source code is here as well. Now, okay, let's go to the actual deployment. So, wait, one thing. I'm actually going to first show this slide before I show the script. A little bit of background first. So, how does the page transformation UI solution work? So that's a solution which enables you to modernize pages from inside SharePoint. So you just click on a button and you get a modern version of your page. Now, architecture-wise, how does it work? First of all, we embed a user custom action in the ribbon, so you get a button, like you see this create modern version button on the slide. When you click that button, we launch a central page called transformation.aspx, and that page then is responsible for calling an Azure function. The Azure function is being called as the identity of the SharePoint user. So we're using the SharePoint Framework capabilities to call an Azure AD secure function. And that function is the one doing the heavy lifting. That one is using the SharePoint Modernization Framework to create the model version of the page. Once the page has been created, the page typically will end up with a banner on top of it, which allows your users essentially to kind of either keep the page or discard the page. Discarding the page would mean writing some feedback to the central Modernization Central site collection, which then this feedback is like giving you an indication about why the page was not good enough, what was wrong, which then helps you to further improve the page transformation. Or you can keep the page and then we do a page name swap. So this is the high-level architecture. Now in the setup is split in two parts. There's the Azure side and there's the SharePoint side. And so we're going to run the setup in two parts as well, because we have two scripts doing all the work. So the first script is a really cool script created by Paulo. Not sure if Paulo is in the call, but Paulo did the majority of the work here. And that script allows you to programmatically create an Azure function, an Azure AD application, and connect them and configure them so that they're ready to be used by the modernization tool. So let's go to here. This is the script called provision-modernization framework.ps1, where you provide your subscription, the Azure subscription that you want to use to host the Azure function. Resource group, name, location, and storage account that's needed for the function to work, to store the data. The actual name of the function, this will be the URL that your function will have in the end, and then the SharePoint application name that we are creating. These first one are kind of free for you to configure. You can put the Azure function wherever you want. The latter two, they need to be always SharePoint PNP.modernization, because that's the Azure AD application name that we expect to be present, that's present in your Azure environment. So let me select this and press F8, and then we get some prompts, and once that's done, we switch to PowerShell for some more modernization goodness. So I need to log in to my Azure environment. So in this case, I'm logging in to the Azure environment where I will create the Azure AD application, which can be different than the one where you create the Azure function, which is in my case. So I'm adding the information for my Azure subscription. This typically is the Azure subscription connected to your tenant. So now we create an Azure AD application, and we'll get a prompt to connect to the Azure AD, to the Azure environment where you want to create your Azure function in a second. So let's see if that pops up. Once that's popping up, then we switch. Waiting. Anyone a good joke? No. By the way, you see the client secret and the client ID here.
There was this talk about the whale joke that Patrick mentioned.
Yeah. All right, here we are. So in this case, I'm going to the subscription that I provided here. SPO-SE-CRT is an internal Microsoft one for my team. So I'm going to authenticate a Microsoft account. So the script allows you to use different Azure environments, one for the Azure AD setup and one for the Azure function setup. So I'm authenticating right now, and we have a PIN to authenticate. Yeah, adding the PIN. Hopefully it goes well. Seems to be good. So this will run for a couple of minutes. While this is running, let's do something else. Wait, that's kind of boring to watch the screen. So I'm going to go to, not this one, to this one. So what we have here is a site composed of electronics having classic pages. So if we take, for example, D88, this page is our wiki page. Let's put it in edit mode, page edit. With a particular layout, header, 2 columns with text, images, a web part, a Illustrator web part, YouTube, kind of typical formatted wiki page.
If I may say, it shows you're a developer.
Why?
Just
Yeah.
a little remark.
And I was already happy with my great, perfect-looking page, but now, yeah, all right, back with my feet on the earth. Good. This is the page, and actually there's multiple pages here. So we have 3 drone-related pages. So let's see if we can modernize those. So, all right, I'm here in the right environment. I already connected the PNP PowerShell to this particular site collection. For this demo, you need to have the latest PNP PowerShell. It does require the December bits that we released yesterday evening. So, but once you have those, what you can do, you will actually find a new commandlet, convert to PNP client-side page. And here, let me go a bit to the right. I can specify, for example, let's take the D88, and let's add the page accept banner. So when I hit enter, what will happen is that the page transformation framework is being used to build a modern version of the page. Now you might wonder, like, wait, in the past there was like this web art mapping file that I had to specify, and then that sounded complex, and where is that file now? Because I don't see it. And that's correct. That file actually is embedded inside the PowerShell as a resource. So there's a default web art mapping file that we use. You can still specify your own web art mapping file if you want. So you can, if you don't want to use the default, let's say, for example, you want to transform classic web parts to your custom web parts, to your own third-party web parts, you can do that. But then you specify the web art mapping file and in here, and then it uses your custom mapping. But by default, it uses the default mapping, which only transforms towards first-party Microsoft web parts. As you see on the screen here, there's a new page created, migrated D88. And when I click on this page, I get the modern version of this page. And this all looks quite similar, but now we have a modern version. If we put the page in edit mode, you see we'll have the same layout. We have this top, the header, 2 columns. We have text, same formatting, images are there. So we split text and images in different parts. We have the video, we have other web parts. So essentially, the tool tries to do as good as possible mapping of the old towards the new.
Sorry to jump in, but what happens with like custom web parts where there's no mapping available?
So when there is no mapping available, well, first of all, there are not really custom web parts anymore on SharePoint Online.
Fair enough.
Since we stopped Sandbox, they're gone. If you have a custom, if you use an add-in, web part coming via SharePoint add-in, for example,
yep,
that one will be just kept. We take over the configuration, that will be fine. If you are using already a SharePoint Framework web parts on classic pages, they are kept as well. So everything is kept. From the SharePoint has like a massive amount of classic web parts, out of the box ones. So I think more than 80. We don't transform all of them. But what we have currently in the tool does cover like more than 90% of the web part usages. So we have telemetry showing that with the current mappings, more than 90% of all the pages can be transformed to modern, which is a quite big area to transform, to work on. Good. So there was a question, what about search web part and display templates? Well, there is no current out-of-the-box equivalent. We have the highlighted content web part, but that's fairly basic for now. There is plans to improve that and make it more generic and kind of give it also a templating model. Once that's there, we can convert to that one. But if you're not blocked to already plug in, for example, Frank Cornus, I think it was Frank that built it, sample that we have. You can plug in any custom web part that you want and transform towards that one. So it's really extendable, and there's a lot of documentation. If you go to ak.ms/svpnp-modernize, you can drill down to the modernizing pages section, And there's a ton of content around the actual internals of the tool, how it works, and how you can configure it, etc. Now back to this page. The page was generated, and we have this banner on top of it. And this banner is a custom SharePoint Framework web art that you can deploy separately. You can just download the package from our repository, install that in your tenant. This web art is not visible, so it's configured to not show up in the web art picker. So you can perfectly safely deploy it to your tenant and then use PowerShell and have this banner being put on the page, which then allows you to kind of keep or discard the page. So in this case, let's say I'm not happy with the page. I click discard this page. I get a dialog asking a category, why you don't like it. So let's say other reasons, demo. You hit OK, and the page will be deleted. All right.
Sorry to jump in again. I'm almost sounding like Vesa. But just jumping in.
Inner Vesa is strong, so let it out. Let it out.
Yeah. So just to make sure that people understand that you do not require the Azure function to what you just did with the PowerShell.
Really good remark, Erwin. Indeed, this web part that you saw, and let's actually create a new page. Then we have to web part again. Let's do D95. Different page, same story. That web part, indeed, it works without a function. It uses PnP.js to essentially update the page. So when you click on the web part, it just works without having a backend. It's fully client-side, essentially. So we have a new page here. Let's do something different. So when the page is loading, and again, I'm not going to go into the details of this page, but it's a complex page with tables, with even you see here like a third-party SharePoint Framework web art. This is our PnP tiles web art, which is converted from the classic page into the modern page. So all looks good. Actually, where is my banner? Did I not add the option? Oh, no, I didn't, I guess.
No, I don't think you did.
No, I didn't do that. So you can do it without, but let's do this now with. Accept page banner, and I need to specify override because I just want to override my created page. And then, boom, done. Let's refresh this guy again, F5. And we have the banner here. So when I click on discard, we actually delete the page using client-side APIs, fairly basic. But when I click on keep this page, what will happen is that we do a page name swap. So before doing that, let's go here. Notice the page name. The original name was D95 Daysfix. This one is called migrated_D95. That's when we keep this page, we're going to swap page names. And that is done fully client-side using PnP.js. It also means that we are removing ourselves from this page. So this web part removes itself from the page. And now we have the page again. D95. But this is now the modern page. And we even keep navigation, so we fix up navigation links. Everything goes really smooth and automatic. All right. So I hope the PowerShell option is really convenient for you to start playing around with page transformation and start creating modern versions of your pages. Because if you modernize your site collections, you have model lists and libraries, you can optionally group connect it, but there is nothing for pages. And this kind of fills that gap. With this one, you can then also tackle your pages, and you have a full modern site after this operation. I'm going to switch back to my script here. Just context switching. Remember we did launch the setup of the Azure component, and that all seemed to complete successful. There is one thing that I'm going to copy this URL. So the Azure site has been completed. Let's check that. Too many windows. I think it's this one. No. This one, sorry. I'm going to refresh this one here, and this is my Azure subscription, and we should have PnP Modernization Test 5. So a new resource created with a new Azure function created, which is fully configured for you to work. So this one has the bits uploaded. It is it's connected to Azure application for authentication. Courses configured. All things are good to go. There's one thing that we have to do manually, and that is actually granting kind of consenting the application. So for that, that URL was pasted in the window over here. Let's try to copy it again. Control C. All right. So I have to do an admin consent of the created Azure application. Doing that right now. So it will need these permissions. So I accept. So I do this one time for my complete environment. So that's done. Now we can continue with the second part, which is the SharePoint site. First of all, we are going to connect SharePoint Online. Yeah. Like this. Then I'm going to copy the parameters. So when we provision the SharePoint site, we also need to tell SharePoint which Azure AD application to use, which Azure function to use. So for that, the script outputted the parameters that you need. So we paste that in here. And then we can launch apply a PNP tenant template. So this template will create the site collection, the Modernization Center site collection, and will configure everything. It will upload applications, do everything that's needed to make it work. So pressing F8, and now this one will be created. This goes fairly quick because the create a site collection is a communication site, so that's creation story goes fairly quick. Now, while this is running, I'm going to flip back again to PowerShell, and just to show some other options here. So you might want to, when you create a modern version of the page, you might also want to automatically make it the final version. Remember, previously we just did the page name swap by clicking on the banner, but maybe you want it to be automatically the real version, and you can do that. There is a parameter called take source page name. At that point, we automatically do the swap. The old page, however, is never deleted. So here, if we go to the page library over here, where we just created those pages, what you see is like this guy, old _ D95. Remember that we accepted D95 as being the final page, but then the old page is still there. So you can always go back to the old page if something was missing or you have afterthoughts about what you did. There's always a way back, which is good.
Bert, there was a question here asking what happens if you get within SharePoint on a page, create a link to a SharePoint page, then it references the file and not the page URL. So if the page URL changes, actually the link in the page also updates automatically. What happens with those kind of links?
Those links will be handled correctly. So SharePoint is clever enough to rename, to change links. When you change a page name, it will change the underlying links. And that's why we have like a special way to do the page name swap. We actually create copies of pages to deal with that scenario. So essentially, like if there was, let's say you have the D95.aspx page, or a wiki page, then you create the modern version. And when you swap it, all the links from other locations, other site collections, for example, when they go to D95.aspx, they will end up on that particular spot. So everything should stay working correctly.
Okay. Another question was, can you modernize the tenant root homepage?
Yeah, you can perfectly create modern pages in there, meaning nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't group connect that root site though. So we block group connecting the root site, and we are working on a modern tenant home. So our company portal. So that's something coming. But in the meantime, you can perfectly create modern pages in your root site. Yes.
Yeah.
What other option do we have here? Really quick, and then we can flip back to the PowerShell site, to the setup site. Web of mapping, we talked about that. Override, yes. Last one, replace homepage with default. You can also, when you want to modernize all the pages, for example, and you can argue like, do I want to modernize my classic theme site homepage as being that page, or do I want to give it a default modern homepage, like the same one that you would get from a newly created modern theme site? You can do that. If you specify this switch and the page happens to be the homepage, it will just plug in a default modern homepage for you. Alrighty, let's go back over here. The tenant apply did succeed, so that's all good. Let's see if it actually worked. Not this one, this one. So first of all, let's check if we have applications uploaded. And we have two aspects, solutions deployed. That's good. The template also does grant the proper permissions for the application. So we need SharePoint PnP modernization. This API is user impersonation permission. So that's done as part of the template. We have, we should have an application created here. Let's do this SharePoint. Here is SharePoint PnP modernization has been created. All good. So it even has the proper permissions because we did the grant permissions. So we have that part covered here. So we have admin consented the permissions. Remember that this is a step that we did manually. So the last thing is actually going to the Modernization Center. So let's copy this part over here. I'm going to go to the Modernization Center URL. And when this loads, you will see and they're delivering a package to me. Interesting. When you see this site, this page, it contains some links with information, but it contains also a web part that you can use to enable page transformation in the UI. So, for example, here I have a site called Modernize, and this site does not yet have page transformation enabled. So I can go over here. Click on Enable. Now we are embedding user custom actions in this particular site. So if I now refresh this page and pick a page, let's say a demo, you'll see that the Create Modern Version button is there. So you can choose where you want to light up this capability. You don't have to do it everywhere. You can really choose which site collections that get this capability. So if I hit Create Modern Version, if everything is well, then now we are calling into our Azure function and that is kind of starting up right now. It takes a bit of time and it will generate the modern version of this page. While this one is running, let's quickly as well go over here. Let's do this. If I take, for example, the page again, we also have a button over here in the ribbon now that you can use to do this work. And here it is. Here's our page created self-service as a user. And again, the same options are there that we discussed previously. Erwin, I think I'm going to wrap up. Key takeaways is the setup story is way easier now with the scripts that we have. So you saw us running two scripts, the Azure side and the SharePoint side in two script runs, really basic and easy now. So give it a try in your environment. If you feel this is too hard, or if you don't need specific, you don't want to provide the option to your end users, look at the PowerShell options. They are super, super easy to use. One commandlet, one call, and boom, you have a modern page.
Right. So there was actually a question here asking when you do not accept the page, you could provide some feedback. Where is that feedback going?
Good question. That feedback goes to, let's take actually my test tenant. Go to the Modernization Center. Modernization. there is a list in here, modernization feedback, which contains all the data. So the data stays in your tenant. We're not sending the information outside your environment. Well, actually, if this loads, I'm not sure why it's not loading. Oh, there it is. You see, here is our line from just before, 40 minutes ago. So data goes over there.
And then one more question. Okay, all cool, PowerShell. Say I don't want to use PowerShell. I want to write my own wonderful GUI around it.
There is .NET as well. There's a NuGet package that you can install, and then it's like it's super easy in .NET as well. Let's go aks.ms/sp-pnp-modernize. This is our modernization home. In here, let's go to user interface, transform classic pages to client-side pages. And then we have page transformation via .NET, which shows you how to do it. Essentially, creating a page transformation information object, and then calling up transform, and boom, that's it.
Stephen asked, but it doesn't affect site contents, does it?
Site contents page is a system page, which is always modern if you have enabled modern listening libraries in your environment. So no, it doesn't affect that.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And sorry I went quite long, but there was time. I used the opportunity to talk a bit more.
You used it. No problems. No problems.
So,
right.
But any more questions in the chat, or we have some time for Q&A still, Aaron. So
exactly. I have
about this or about another topic that you want to discuss.
No, there's a few more slides that I want to go through, and then we can take, if we have a few minutes left, we can do the Q&A. And I'm almost sure there will be questions about modernization. Tell me when you can see my deck. Should be there. At least my screen says it should be there.
Visible.
Yeah, good. So remember that next Thursday, that's in 2 days from now, there will be the development special interest group. So PnP Sites Core, PnP PowerShell, Flow, Power Apps, all those things will be the topic. That's this Thursday. You see the link there, the AKMS link. Just go to that link, you will get an invite and join it. And then next week, Thursday, will be the SPFX JavaScript special interest group hosted by Patrick. Just absolutely make sure to join those. They have great content, and they go a bit deeper into topics than we can do in these monthly calls. So that was actually the only slide I wanted to show, because the next slide says Q&A. Any questions, just pop them in the chat, or you can even unmute if you want to. We have 2 more minutes left.
So I saw a question about content editors in page transformation, and that's a common question that I always get. It's like, what about content editor? What about script editor? And the default behavior is that we skip those. We're not transforming those. But if you look at the web art mapping file that you can download, and you will see that there is some pieces in comment, and those pieces in comment actually already show you how to light up a third-party script editor web art in your environment. So essentially, if you have a SharePoint Framework-based script editor web art, then the tool can transform your content editor and classic script editor towards those. So there is an option, but it's not enabled by default.
Right. That's cool. There was a question here from Kevin that I cannot answer, but maybe Bert or Patrick can. Is there any news of the mega menus in the world? They were due by end of December, but that's closing in. So
I can't confirm. I know they're coming. No, I don't have a date to share.
No. I also remember that someone earlier in the chat was asking or wondering if Santa would bring him a modern root site for his tenant before Christmas, and I don't think so. I think this, you have to take into account that we're not rolling out much things in the coming weeks, because it's like a freeze period to folks are on vacation, and if something goes wrong, we want to have the right people available. So
we kind of slow the pace a little bit in the coming weeks.
Right. Yeah. So Bert, there was a question here from Alex here. Do you plan to have some mapping option to transfer from third-party classic web parts to modern?
Yeah, well, third-party classic web parts, they don't exist anymore on SharePoint Online, and the tool currently only supports SharePoint Online. But once we go towards on-premises, because this makes sense for on-premise as well, especially SharePoint 2019, actually SharePoint 2019, SharePoint 2016 as well, then it makes sense. And yeah, it's a matter of just plugging them into the web part mapping file, and that's it. So the whole tool is generic. Everything is driven from one particular web part mapping file that describes the classic web parts and describes the target where it goes to. So you can perfectly change it and do whatever with it what you want. You can even plug in your own custom code in there. So it is really meant to be extended and shared and reused, and yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you. It's again straight at the hour. Thank you for today. Thank you for all that joined up. We had a great attendance today. Remember to learn, reuse, and share what you just learned. SPPNP, aka MS SPPNP, is the only URL you have to remember. From there, you will find all the other URLs that we mentioned during this during these texts. So thank you. Have a great week, and hope to see you on Thursday.